kunnen we gezamenlijk doen om die te bevorderen. Maar je praat ook over de waardeketens. Hè? Dus we weten inmiddels als je een medicijn maakt, of zelfs wanneer je voor corona, laten we zeggen, mondkapjes nodig hebt of handschoenen, dat die uit de hele wereld komen. En ook die bouwstenen daarvoor, zeker voor medicijnen en ook voor, laten we zeggen, high-tech, dat daar die internationale waardeketens van heel groot belang zijn. Daar is deze regio groot in, belangrijk in, wordt ook steeds groter. Vietnam, 100 miljoen mensen, 400 miljard economie. Indonesië natuurlijk een van de grootste landen ter wereld. Maar ook de andere economieën zoals Laos, Cambodja, Thailand. Nou, tot slot uiteraard Oekraïne. Je ziet dat ASEAN zegt alleen, als we het allemaal eens zijn, nemen we een positie in. Dus ASEAN als zodanig is neutraal. Maar binnen ASEAN zijn er landen die wel degelijk, zoals de Filipijnen en Indonesië, zich hebben uitgesproken tegen die oorlog en de resolutie van de VN gesteund hebben. Anderen hebben dat niet gedaan. Dus het is ook een kans om weer met collega's te praten uit die regio en het belang te benadrukken van die wereldwijde steun voor Oekraïne in die oorlog tegen Rusland.
Daar bent u ook op uit vandaag om te proberen om nog meer van deze landen bijvoorbeeld zover te krijgen dat ze sancties zouden steunen of dat ze steun zouden verlenen aan het tribunaal bij Nederland.
Nou, in ieder geval te beginnen steun verlenen aan de VN-resolutie. Dat is de resolutie die steun heeft gekregen van 143 landen. Het zal vandaag niet gaan lukken om heel veel verder te komen. Dat gaat u stap voor stap. En het zal ook niet zijn omdat ik tegen een land zeg, je moet alsnog steun geven aan die resolutie. Dan zeg ik, ja, nu zegt Mark Rutte dat, dan ga ik het alsnog doen. Maar als je met elkaar dat gesprek voert in alle rust en ook uitlegt dat het in feite een kolonisatieoorlog is. En het zijn allemaal landen die in meer of mindere mate ook te maken hebben gehad met het koloniaal verleden. En dit is natuurlijk gewoon een kolonisatieoorlog van Rusland richting Oekraïne. En dat merk ik ook in de gesprekken met Afrikaanse collega's. Dat men zegt, ja, dat werpt wel weer een ander licht op de zaak. Niet dat ze er zelf niet eerder over na hadden gedacht. Maar het helpt je om met elkaar dat gesprek goed te voeren.
Wat is dan de rol en de positie van Nederland binnen dit gezelschap? U zegt al, het maakt niet meteen verschil als ik dat zeg. Je noemt ook die koloniale erfenis.
En interessant is dat wij voor bijna al deze landen een van de grootste handelspartners zijn in Europa. Vaak nummer 1 of 2. Nee, sorry, nummer 2 of 3. Meestal niet nummer 1. En we zijn vaak de grootste investeerder in zo'n land. Dus onze rol in die regio is eigenlijk heel erg groot. Veel groter dan het relatieve gewicht van Nederland in de Europese Unie, waar wij 5 keer kleiner zijn dan Duitsland, 4 keer kleiner dan Frankrijk. Wel de 5e van de 27 economieën, maar dus op afstand van de top 4. Zijn wij daar echt een grote speler. Dus in die zin moet ik mezelf misschien ook niet te klein maken.
En hindert het dan, of is het juist een voordeel dat Nederland zelf natuurlijk ook een koloniaal verleden heeft?
Dat maakt niet uit, want Indonesië, die relaties zijn heel erg goed. Indonesië laat op geen enkele manier blijken in de relaties dat dat een thema is, dat verleden. En ook andere landen in Europa hebben natuurlijk, kijk naar Frankrijk bijvoorbeeld, en ook Engeland hebben natuurlijk een verleden, ook koloniaal in die regio.
Meneer Rutte, de wereldhandel is natuurlijk een actueel onderwerp. Daar gaat het morgen ook uitgebreid over. Gisteren in het debat was wel een beetje positief over die toespraak van mevrouw von der Leyen in Brugge. Dat ging nog heel erg over IPSAI. Ze heeft zojuist een brief gestuurd waarin ze het nog veel breder trekt. Ja. En dat komt eigenlijk neer op een hele andere band tussen publiek en privaat. En dan gaat het... Het is nu altijd het idee van die onrendabele top financieren met subsidies, maar dat wil ze dus breder trekken. Kan dat op steun rekenen van Nederland? Wij zijn daar ook terughoudend in.
Ja, daar zijn we nog steeds terughoudend in. Hoewel ik die speech in Brugge van haar heel sterk vond, omdat zij in feite Europa neerzette als een continent met zelfvertrouwen. Ook in die relatie met Amerika. De gesprekken ook die Macron heeft gevoerd zijn ook hoopgevend. En ook dat de Amerikanen echt bereid zijn om op die inflatieverminderingswet, die Inflation Reduction Act, om te kijken wat kun je doen om te tweaken, om een aantal Europese zorgen daarin een plek te geven. Als Nederland zijn we inderdaad heel terughoudend om nou ineens veel verder te gaan dan wat we tot nu toe met IPSAI doen. We denken wel dat je IPSAI kunt versterken. Dat zijn dus die grote projecten van gemeenschappelijk Europees belang. Die zitten vaak in de groene hoek of in de techhoek. Dus op plekken waar de economie ook echt grote groeimogelijkheden heeft. En dat vind ik natuurlijk erg interessant. De vraag is dan bijvoorbeeld, hoe kom je versneld tot uitkering van geld aan bedrijven? Dat duurt vaak heel lang. Dat is een nadeel als je het vergelijkt met dat Amerikaanse model via die IRA. Via dat wetgeving. wetgevingsmodel wat daar ligt. Nou, daar zou je gebruik kunnen maken, is een gedachte waar de Fransen wel mee hebben gespeeld, van nationale fiscale stelsels. Dus hoe krijg je versneld dat geld bij bedrijven? Nou, dat moeten we allemaal nog helemaal bespreken. Dat gaat niet vandaag of morgen gebeuren. Ik zie dat eerder onder het Zweeds voorzitterschap terugkomen. Maar Nederland probeert daar wel forward leaning in te zijn. Niet dat we daarmee ieder voorstel van Von der Leyen steunen. Maar de richting die ze aangeeft in de speech in Brugge is interessant. En dat is langs 3 lijnen. Heel kritisch kijken naar state aid. Geen race to the bottom. Maar ook niet vasthouden aan alle stelsels zoals we die nu hebben. Dus dat gewoon heel precies bekijken wat helpt daar. Om ervoor te zorgen dat Shell ook in Europa blijft investeren. Niet alleen dadelijk in Amerika in groene waterstof. En andere bedrijven. En ook de nieuwe economie natuurlijk, zoals groen en tech. 2, hoe kun je dan IPCEI zo inzetten dat dat maximaal ook leidt tot het versnel krijgen van het geld bij de bedrijven als ze er recht op hebben. En het derde is geld zelf, waarbij Nederland zegt, ga nou niet naar nieuw geld zoeken. Maar kijk nou eerst nog eens even wat je binnen het MFF, dus de 7-jaarsbegroting, binnen alle andere potjes die er zijn, bijvoorbeeld voor renewables en de moderne energietransitie bouwen, wat daar nog beschikbaar is.
Ja, want over die meerjarenbegroting, daar flirt mevrouw Von der Leyen. Afgelopen maandag deed ze dat toch ook weer met het idee om dat open te breken. Ze heeft ook nadrukkelijk in Brugge gezegd, we zullen naar nieuwe potjes geld moeten gaan zoeken.
Ja, en onze reactie is dan prima om binnen het MFF te herprioriteren. We denken dat daar legio mogelijkheden voor zijn. Het is een enorme bak geld met, het is 700 of 800 miljard erin. Heel veel moet nog worden uitgekeerd en gecommitteerd. Dus wij zoeken dat daar binnen. Maar overigens, er liggen ook nog geen voorstellen voor nieuw geld. Hè. Laat ik het ook meteen zeggen. Ook Von der Leyen tot nu toe, ook in mijn contacten met haar, heeft het meer over bestaand geld dan over nieuw geld. En Nederland, zoals bekend, is natuurlijk kritisch over nieuw geld.
Tot slot, vanochtend dus trekt het nog breder dan IPCEI. Dan gaat het voor het Nederlandse geval dat je bijvoorbeeld de SDE++ niet meer alleen onrendabele top misschien gaat financieren, maar dat nog veel breder gaat doen. Ja, dat is toch een manier van de interne markt, kijken naar de interne markt zoals we dat nu niet kennen.
Nee, waarbij dus daar zijn wij voorzichtig, omdat we zeggen je moet oppassen dat je naar race to the bottom gaat en onder druk van Amerika een aantal principes van de vrije markt loslaat. Ik wil alleen niet reageren daarmee op Von der Leyen, want ik heb die brief alleen een paar punten net telefonisch gehoord, de 4, 5 hoofdthema's die ze adresseert en niet in detail. Dus dan reageer ik op uw vraag, maar nog even niet op haar brief, want dan wil ik hem eerst even goed lezen. Maar ik snap uw vraag.
Channel News ASEAN. Minister, this is a first summit for the ASEAN partners. They have not all on board with the kind of condemnation that you would like when it comes to Russia's war in Ukraine. Are you disappointed by the kind of compromise language you've managed to land on?
No, because I understand ASEAN has a tradition of only coming to joint statements if there is consensus. So I understand that within the group of ASEAN countries there is a difference of opinion. For example, the Philippines and Indonesia have a more forward-leaning position on the UN resolutions than, for example, Thailand. So there is a difference between ASEAN countries. I will speak with many of them. And of course we will all, in the one-on-one talks and the bilateral meetings, very much emphasize the point that this colonial war of Russia against Ukraine, we hope, of course, will have as much support in condemning it as possible. And again, I do think there are ways the coming days, but also over the next weeks and months, to continue the dialogue and to make sure that we broaden the base under this UN resolution.
ASEAN pretty concerned about EU green laws, for example, deforestation, palm oil. The Netherlands is pushing very hard to advance its green agenda. Do you understand those concerns?
I understand both. I understand why we are doing that. And I also understand the worry. So I will certainly address that in a couple of my bilateral meetings. I'm absolutely convinced that for the longer term, this is the best way forward in terms of building green economies with high growth potential. But obviously there is a transition issue which we need to address.
Prime Minister, one word to the corruption scandal in Parliament. What damage does the European Union take about it?
Well, obviously we are very worried about the reports about corruption in the European Parliament, but I'm also very much supporting the European Parliament President, Metsola. I think she made some excellent interventions over the last 48 hours. She will be with us tomorrow at the European Council, and I will give her my full support in her work to get to the bottom of this.
The EU will pledge €10 billion euros for infrastructure in Southeast Asia, which is less than 1% of what is estimated to be required. Does the Global Gateway need to deliver more in this region?
It is step by step, and it is not just only what we will discuss today. Obviously, here we have to do more. But I think what we are doing today is important.
Okay, thank you.
One question here, please. Which role can you play next to China and the United States in this geopolitical arena that is the ASEAN region?
Well, we are the biggest market in the world. We are bigger than China, we are bigger than the United States. We are the most successful trading bloc in world history. And we want to be a player and not a playing field. So in that sense, we have to make sure that we have a strong position in our relationship with ASEAN. I'm absolutely convinced that we will achieve that. We have already made much progress over the last years with the 10 ASEAN countries. And I'm looking forward to build on that. That's crucial because we are talking here about worldwide supply chains. We are talking about growth potential, particularly now that with high energy prices, we have to really look for where are the possibilities to get more growth going. But it is also helping all of us in a time of great geopolitical tensions. For example, because of the war of Russia, the aggressive war of Russia against Ukraine. And here, of course, we hope to get as many ASEAN countries on our side in condemning that war.
Do you think we should rethink our relations with Qatar when we see the allegations of bribery?
Well, on the bribery allegations, I want to say, first of all, we are all shocked about the news. But I want also to say that I have full confidence in the President of the European Parliament. I think she took exactly the right steps the last 48 hours. So she has my full support in what she is doing. Obviously, we are the government branch, she is the Parliament branch. But looking at what she is doing, I'm really impressed what she is doing. Thank you. Bye-bye. I was in Parliament to have the debate preparing for today's and tomorrow's meeting. I'm sorry.
From Croatia. What do you think about our team?
Croatia? Yeah. I text messaged the Prime Minister when you guys won the last game. And unfortunately, you were not able to push through yesterday. But I'm really impressed. It's a small country. And you were fighting a country in the last game a couple of days ago of more than 200 million people. So you have every reason to be extremely proud.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm very happy that we have this ASEAN meeting because in the world, in the global world that we live today, it is very important that those countries that keep very important the rules-based order in the world and understand what values we all share. This is important that we share our different points of view on different topics. We had very good discussions already regarding connectivity, for example. In the global world that we are living today, it is very important that we are connected to like-minded countries because always the other side of the connection can also weaponize this connection, as we have seen. So it is very important that we share different viewpoints regarding this.
How is the base China for you?
Excuse me?
Can ASEAN countries replace China?
We definitely look forward to cooperate with the like-minded countries, like ASEAN countries are, in terms of technological cooperation, for example. So we find new ways to have new connections.
How can the EU make sure that it's not overtaken by China in the ASEAN countries, especially with the markets? We see that China is investing every year more and more in the ASEAN countries. What is the EU's role?
This is a very important question because everybody or every country is building their own center of gravity in a different way. So it is important that also European countries do and have business ties with ASEAN countries. We are there in connectivity projects, for example, regarding technology, because China is building their influence by investing in technology and connectivity as well. So we have to be there. We have to cooperate more to find ways to also invest in order to not have problems later. We have different connectivity projects, but for example, Estonian companies have in Philippines different smart cities connectivity projects. So that and there is a question of connectivity in Philippines. You have like 7,000 islands, and connectivity is a big issue. So who invests in that connectivity in the world where we are all more and more connected? I think we can't move to deglobalization, but we have to find ways that we connect with the countries that are like-minded, because these connections can also be used as a weapon.
Do you think we have to rethink our relations with Qatar since there are allegations of bribery?
This is a very, very serious case, and I understand that it's being investigated. It is true that different countries are trying to influence European decision makers. We have to be very aware, and I think it shows the strength of the police that these things get out in the public, and I think it also keeps those things happening again.
The EU is so eager in fighting corruption. What damage does the EU take from this?
It is very damaging. I think for all the politicians that have been fighting so hard to show that we are making our decisions based on the values that we share and principles that we share. If such cases come up, then it is damaging to all, not only to European Union but also European politicians. But I must confirm and say that we are not all like this, and I think that these cases that come to public, this is good to also prevent them in the future.
Prime Minister, are you disappointed that the EU wasn't able to convince all of the ASEAN members to criticise the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
What has to be understood is that ASEAN countries are geographically further away from this war, but I have had many good meetings that also the ASEAN countries understand that this affects us all. I mean, in terms of food security or in terms of high inflation, and that's why we all have to fight this together. It's not the sanctions that the EU is imposing, but the war that Russia is waging on Ukraine.
How can the ASEAN countries be allies in promoting multilateralism now that multilateralism is actually invaded by actors like Russia?
But multilateralism actually is flourishing. I mean, we have had very good meetings where we take very united stand. For example, Russia does not believe in multilateralism. Today's meeting is a good example that multilateralism exists and is well that we are coming up with a paper also bringing about our common views, and I think it's a good sign of multilateralism. Okay.
There is an open air agreement with Qatar. Do you think we should think about this again?
I'm not able to answer this. I have to. I mean, all these things, all these allegations are very, very serious. I think we have to reconsider all the relations that we have to look into how we cooperate, but I really want to stress that it's the case that is open now. I hope that it stays like this and there is not more related to this. Thank you very much.
Te bevorderen. Maar je praat ook over de waarden, en ook voor, laten we zeggen, high-tech, dat daar die internationale waardeketens van heel groot belang zijn. Daar is deze regio groot in, belangrijk in, wordt ook steeds groter.
Ties with ASEAN countries, we are there in connectivity projects, for example. In the global world that we are living today, it is very important that we are connected to like-minded countries because and have business ties with ASEAN countries. We are there in connectivity projects.
Das Treffen alleine ist schon ein Statement. Ich glaube, wir feiern ja auch Geburtstag. Wir haben ein Flugabkommen, was wir unterschreiben, was auch wichtig ist. Und dass wir zusammenkommen, um über die internationale Beziehung zu reden, ist schon ein starkes Signal. Also man hat ja das Gefühl, dass meistens die verschiedenen Kontinente sich da nicht einig sind. Und wenn wir uns zusammen einigen können, um aber ein bisschen über den Weltzustand zu reden, kann nicht schaden.
Geopolitisch ein wichtiger Schauplatz, wo die USA als auch China versuchen hier auf den Markt Einfluss zu nehmen. Welche Rolle kann die EU denn?
Also wir wissen ja, dass auch im Meer da viele Spannungen sind. Ich glaube, es ist auch wichtig, dass da weniger Stress wird. Ich glaube, wir können uns nicht noch Konflikte erlauben. Und es geht jetzt über den ASEAN-Länder, es geht ja nicht über China. Wir haben ein Land ja nicht eingeladen, das ist Myanmar, aber die anderen Länder sind alle da. Und ich glaube, es ist schon ein starkes Zeichen, dass alle gekommen sind. Also alleine das ist schon eine starke Botschaft. Ja. Man sieht ja immer meistens das Negative, aber es gibt auch manchmal positiv, allein zusammenzukommen. Ist schön kalt, ja. Ja, heute, morgen und ich hoffe nicht übermorgen, dass es weitergeht. Dann sind wir uns nämlich einig über die Energiefrage, wo es trotzdem noch Interpretationsdivergenzen, sagt man da diplomatisch auf Luxemburgisch, gibt über den Price Cap, oder man soll es ja nicht Cap nennen, aber dann Preisbegrenzung oder Name ist mir ziemlich wurscht, aber Hauptsache wir bringen es fertig als Europäische Union, auch gute Preise zu bekommen beim Einkaufen. Es kann doch nicht sein, wir zeigen Solidarität und wir machen sogar Besteuerung von Profite von Betriebe bei uns und die anderen Länder der Welt, die Produktion machen, bereichern sich. Also ich sitze nicht am G20 am Tisch und habe auch nicht dieselbe Influenza, aber Europa sind ja vertreten, ein paar Länder, die hier am Tisch sind ja auch doch vertreten und so schon die Interesse der anderen europäischen Länder auch dort vertreten. Deswegen, das ist die Frage, die wir... Und normalerweise werden wir dann morgen lange reden und nachher sagen, dass die Energieminister das machen sollen. Aber das scheint auch bei denen zu laufen. Voilà.
Wir unsere Haltung zu global überdenken, auch was die Fluglinie betrifft und deren Rechte.
Ich glaube, es gibt ja auch eine juristische Behörde in Belgien, die ja auch damit beschäftigt sind. Und ich war Rechtsanwalt. Ich werde nicht selber über laufende Prozesse reden. Ich glaube, es sind ja auch Leute, die in Untersuchungshaft sitzen. Und die belgische Justiz soll ihre Arbeit machen und dann werden wir nachher kommentieren können. Vorher nicht. Ja.
Schauen Sie auch nach Iran?
Ja, selbstverständlich. Ja, schrecklich. Es ist so. Also ich habe letztes Mal mich aufgeregt, dass eine Sittenpolizei eine Frau umgebracht hat. Seitdem ist es noch viel schlimmer geworden. Auch wenn die dann glauben, dass wir beruhigt werden, wenn sie sagen, dass die Sittenpolizei nicht mehr gibt oder die Frauen den Tuch nicht mehr tragen müssen. Es ist doch alles nur Blabla. Also das Harddisk ist noch immer das, was es ist und es ist nicht beim Reboot, wo es jetzt besser geht. Also die Iraner müssen Wir dürfen den nicht vergessen. Ich glaube, wir haben ja auch Sanktionen als EU genommen gegenüber den Verantwortlichen im Iran. Und das, was passiert, ist einfach inakzeptabel. Also wir können nicht über all Mögliches, was in der Welt passiert und im Iran die Augen schließen. Es ist schrecklich, was dort passiert und die Leute leben in Gefahr und wir müssen wirklich jede mit den Aktionen, die wir haben können, die Iraner unterstützen. Und es muss also Regimewechsel oder auf jeden Fall also Programm bei Null anfangen. Aber Harddisk ist nicht gut. Und egal wie die Etiketten drauf ist, es Etikettenschwindel, indem man sagt, dass es jetzt keine Sittenpolizei gibt. Es ist irgendjemand anders. Und ich finde es ganz schlimm. Ich weiß ja, von was ich rede. Und wir sollen uns bewusst sein, dass wir Glück haben, in einer Union zu leben, auch wenn es hier nicht immer einfach ist. Aber wo wir sein dürfen, wie wir sind. In anderen Teilen der Welt darf man das nicht. Und das soll man nicht vergessen. Man vergisst das so schnell.
Minister, it is
Yes.
one of your big ASEAN partners, one of the EU's big ASEAN partners, Indonesia, has just passed a law to criminalise sex outside of marriage, including gay sex. You've spoken openly on LGBT issues in the past. Will you bring this up?
I think we should be able to discuss about everything, but it's terrible because, in fact, they recommend to people not to get married because you can do what you want when you're not married. It's crazy. I remember that institutions like Kinderkirche Küche were rules in Europe even last century where we supported, but this has changed, and I think we should be able to discuss about everything. We should listen to them why they think this is useful, but in fact, if I would be Indonesian politicians, I would recommend everybody not to get married. And they want to do it for strengthens the family and strengthens the marriage. And in fact, it's fully opposite, because if you still want to have sexual relations, be married. No, don't get married. Or I don't know, but it's not easy. Über was? Ah ja, im Europaparlament. Ich finde es schrecklich. Ich finde es schrecklich einfach, weil das Europaparlament auch ein Tempel der Werte war und wirklich dieses Stempel auch hatten, uns immer daran zu erinnern, was es ist. Und ich glaube, es ist aber nicht gut für ganz Europa. Es ist nicht nur, oder für die Politik insgesamt. Man soll jetzt nicht das Europaparlament-Bashing oder jetzt eine Partei-Bashing machen. Ich glaube, es ist einfach nicht gut und man muss wirklich streng gegen Korruption kämpfen, und ich hoffe, dass, aber wie gesagt, Ihr Kollege hat schon die Frage gestellt, im Moment ist ein juristisches Verfahren da und dann soll man warten, bis die belgische Justiz ihre Arbeit gemacht hat. Aber das Europaparlament und wir haben ja auch als luxemburgische Regierung jetzt vom Greco unsere Zeugnis bekommen und wir haben jetzt sehr zufrieden. Es war nicht super vor ein paar Jahren und ich glaube, dass wir wirklich mehr Transparenz auch brauchen und ist schon wichtig. Es ist schwer, wenn man den Leuten sagen, man muss alle zusammen solidarisch sein und dann sieht man, dass verschiedene Leuten sehr, sehr viel Geld einzocken ohne Gegenleistung. Ich habe das jetzt probiert, diplomatisch zu erklären. Tschüss!
Today it's a celebration day, 45 years of a diplomatic relationship with ASEAN. I'm going to sign on behalf of the European Union 2 associations and cooperation partnership agreements with Thailand and Malaysia. So important steps on increasing our cooperation with the ASEAN countries. The importance of ASEAN needs to be enhanced. We are the biggest cooperation partner on development. We are the second investor in the region and the third partner with the region. And this region is a vibrant economy. It will be growing and growing in the next years. Now, right now, 1/3 of all trade, maritime trade in the world by volume, goes through South China Sea. So for us, it's a aorta vein. So much important that this navigation remains free and secure. We are going to talk about security also. Security has two sides, Ukraine in one side and mainly the South China Sea, which means the tensions with China. So it's going to be an important meeting, 45 years of economic, diplomatic relations, and an important future in front of us for our cooperation.
How do you want to make sure that the EU is not going to be overtaken in the ASEAN region by other economic actors such as the USA and China?
Engaging more. If you don't want to be override by others, you have to engage more. Invest more, to partner more, to train more, to take very much into consideration their concerns. And these two association and cooperation agreements that I am going to sign is a good example of this strong engagement. There is only way to. There is a battle of offers today in the geopolitical arena. Not only a battle of narrative, but a battle of offers. We have to offer more.
I think we should keep the same relations with Qatar if Qatar tries to bribe politicians.
Well, Qatar is not going to be present today in this meeting.
High Representative, I understand there was supposed to be a part in Taiwan, about Taiwan in this declaration. The EU would have liked that, but it was dropped amid disagreements. Are you disappointed by this?
Well, the declaration is not yet finished. They are still being discussed. On many issues, there is not yet a final agreement. Let's see, which is the final wording of the declaration.
Representative, the EU will pledge 10 billion euros of finance for projects in Southeast Asia, but that's just 1% of what is needed by 2027 according to the ADB. Is the Global Gateway delivering what it should be?
The Global Gateway is on the way. It's a working process. This Sunday we had the board of the Global Gateway. It is the way of putting together our efforts, member states, financial institutions and European institutions. Yes, there is 10 billion. Certainly is not enough. Much more is needed. But it's important that we show what do we do, presenting a united front. 27 member states plus European institutions plus financial institutions. You know, our investment bank is bigger than the World Bank. And in Europe, we have to put together everything. The foreign policy of the European Union requires one thing, more unity, and presenting all of us as a unity. We are not a political institution like the US, a political unity like the US, but we can do much more by putting our efforts together. That is what Global Gateway is about.
With the corruption scandal, are you afraid too that there might come more?
Well, on this issue, there is the judiciary and there is the police. A lot of rumors. But the important thing is not the rumors. The important thing is facts. Let's work the judiciary. We are in a rule of law system. We have an independent judiciary. We have the police working at the service of the investigation. So the best thing we can do is to let the judiciary work. Certainly we condemn corruption everywhere, even at home. But stop widespreading rumors. Let's go to the facts. Let the judiciary and the police work.
Mr. Borrell, Iran government executed people who were demonstrating for freedom. What do you say about that?
What?
Iran. And from execution of people.
Look, we had foreign affairs ministers on Monday, And we approved strong sanctions against Iran by the human rights issue, and in particular for the execution of these two demonstrators. Since Monday, there is nothing new for us. Thank you.
So first of all, could I say that I'm very pleased that we're here today for the European Union ASEAN Summit, which is very important to Ireland from an economic and trade perspective. If, for example, you look over the last 10 years, trade has more than doubled in the intervening period, and so increased connectivity is important from an Irish perspective. The consolidation of supply chains, because we've seen during COVID and the war in Ukraine how supply chains can be disrupted, and the maritime links that are facilitated by this ASEAN-EU cooperation, I think, is important, because over 90% of Irish trade volume is through shipping. And these are all issues that we have to maintain a focus on in terms of Ireland's economic performance and export in particular. So the trading aspect of this partnership between ASEAN and the European Union is very, very important. And today, an important air travel agreement it will be signed, which will improve connectivity on the aviation front, which is also, I think, positive. We will also obviously be discussing wider issues in terms of geopolitical issues, both in the Pacific and, of course, obviously in terms of the war on Ukraine.
Tita, Naomi O'Leary, Irish Times. Now, the Qatargate scandal has illustrated the importance of transparency in the European Parliament. There's no suggestion any Irish MEPs are involved in any way. But I'm asking if you, as leader of Fianna Fáil, will commit that all Fianna Fáil MEPs will voluntarily declare meetings with interest groups, which only a few MEPs, Irish MEPs, currently do, and also to supply expense receipts for their general expense allowance, which again only a few MEPs do that now, and not Fianna Fáil MEPs. So can you make that commitment?
Well, first of all, I would say that I think ours do, actually, in respect of meeting interests and so on like that. They are fully transparent in that regard. But I think I wouldn't single out any one political party here. I think the rules have to apply to all members of the European Parliament, and in my view, the whole idea of an overseeing body to ensure compliance and adherence to ethics is required. I think the public will be shocked at revelations that are emerging. Obviously, due process has to take place in respect of those issues, but nonetheless, people must have confidence in our European Union institutions, and particularly the European Union Parliament, because it has increased its powers over the years. It's a very important part of the co-decision process now, and therefore it has to be fully transparent. And I think the most effective way to ensure that is an overarching ethics agency that would have a common framework for all members, irrespective of party or whether they're independents.
But just to press you on that, the current rules, it's only very limited meetings that MEPs do have to declare, yet some MEPs do go further and just declare all meetings. And Fianna Fáil MEPs don't do that, they don't declare all.
Well, I'm reluctant to get into the business of trying to differentiate between one and the other. I think whatever the rules are, people should adhere to the rules. But what's emerging suggests that we need a broader framework to deal with this. And that's the most effective way to deal with it. We know that from our own domestic legislation in respect of the various, both the Lobbying Act we have in Ireland and in respect of the SIPO, and that's being updated and further legislation is coming on that front. So the application of similar frameworks, in my view, particularly to the European Parliament, is something that should be urgently examined now. I think that's the fairer way to do it, rather than trying to put one against the other in terms of informally doing things. There should be a very basic rules-based framework to ensure full transparency.
And just on domestic politics, do you have a reaction to the Green Party objecting to the planning reform? And is there any prospect of an increase in the building of houses next year?
Well, first of all, the planning bill was approved by government yesterday, by the three parties in government yesterday, and the legislation was approved, and it will go to Parliament now, and it will be, first of all, in terms of pre-legislative process for evaluation and examination. It's a very comprehensive piece of legislation which deals with the fundamental architecture of our planning system in terms of a new planning commission which would replace Board Pleanála. It also provides for a plan-led approach, which I think is very positive, from local area plans to city and county plans to regional plans to the national planning framework, and less deviation in terms of material contraventions of such plans into the future. It also provides a cost regime, which I think gives important guarantees to citizens who want to engage in the planning process, and also in terms of judicial review, that there's a greater safeguards for citizens in advance of taking judicial reviews. Fundamentally, its aim is to simplify and consolidate our planning laws, and it is our House compliant. I have to stress that. And the bottom line then is that we also have urgent needs in respect of meeting climate change challenges, particularly in the offshore wind area. And a very comprehensive climate plan is in preparation now. For that climate plan to be realised within the timelines that it is setting, this Planning Act has to be put in place. And it will get lengthy analysis and debate in Parliament. But in my view, the Planning Act is essential if we are to meet our climate change agenda, if we are to fulfil the obligations that are contained in the draft Climate Action Plan, and also in terms of the housing area, because we do need to build houses faster and at a higher level than we are, although we will exceed targets this year. We will exceed our Housing for All plan this year in terms of houses built, and we're already taking steps to ensure a higher number of houses on the social housing front and affordable housing front on publicly owned land is facilitated through an amendment to existing planning laws, separate from the overall piece of legislation that Darragh O'Brien is bringing through before the recess.
Lisa, from the geopolitics of today's summit, is Ireland disappointed that the language on criticising the Russian invasion is slightly forced? Not all ASEAN members agreed to do so, and I think the EU also failed to get ASEAN to agree on language regarding Taiwan. Is it a bit underwhelming?
Well, I think there were always going to be challenges in that regard. It's no secret in terms of some members of ASEAN in respect of their voting pattern at the United Nations, for example. But in my view, it is disappointing from that perspective, because we have to be very clear in terms of the international rules-based order that the Russian invasion of Ukraine fundamentally contravenes the international rules-based order, is anti-democratic clearly, is illegal and immoral, and it's a war that has to stop. And it has created very significant issues globally in respect of migration, in respect of food and energy prices. And it's, but most fundamentally of all, it has imposed terrible loss of life on the people of Ukraine and young Russian soldiers as well, who I believe many didn't want to be part of this war at all. War destroys young lives, and it's shocking to see this war being conducted in the manner in which it's conducted. The reckless attacking of civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure, the attempts to freeze people out of their homes and out of their country. And I think people need to be clear about that, and I'll make my views known at the summit in respect of our position.
In that regard, there's a lot of talk this week about the EU and ASEAN being like-minded partners. If you're so fundamentally opposed on the issue of condemning the war, is it fair to refer?
Well, in the international world of realpolitik, there always will be differences and challenges in that regard. The overriding objective, however, is to maintain dialogue, to maintain partnerships, to try and avoid these very type of situations happening into the future in different geographic locations. So the overall impulse and momentum to develop agreements, and the ASEAN-European Union agreement is 45 years old. So we have to build on the foundations of that relationship. We have to continue to work with our partners in ASEAN to bring home our point of view on this. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thanks.
One question. The ASEAN region is very interesting for many political actors. What does the EU have to offer?
I've spoken there, I didn't have to. My colleagues will share with you. Hello. Hello.
Thank you.
française. Ça, vous avez compris, c'est que pour aujourd'hui, moi,
Първо, за първи път тази среща се провежда в формат правителствени и държавни ръководители. За първи път от 45 години, откакто са установени дипломатическите отношения между Европейския съюз и АСЕАН. Сходството в визиите между Европейския съюз и АСЕАН по редица важни глобални теми дава възможност да продължим сътрудничество отвъд търговско-икономическите отношения по редица важни въпроси, като сигурност, борба с климатичните промени, устойчиво развитие. Знаете, че България поддържа традиционни приятелски отношения с много от тези страни. И аз се надявам, че днешната среща ще даде възможност за задълбочаване на диалога на най-високо политическо ниво, който, знаете, беше прекъснат от строгите рестрикции по време на пандемията в тези страни.
Като пътувахте насам, парламентът отхвърли кабинета с мандат на ГЕРБ. Вашият първи коментар?
И да коментирате ветото, което...
Първо, когато погледнем към правителството на господин Габровски, като състав, той има много добри експерти, като програма има важни приоритети, но липсва политическата физиономия, липсва политическата отговорност, защото на практика това правителство се явява посредник между партия ГЕРБ и българските граждани. Аз мисля, че не е сега момента и не хората искат да видят посредници. Те искат да видят ясна политическа отговорност, защото претенцията за власт върви заедно с политическата отговорност за нея. И мисля, че партия ГЕРБ заложиха повече на амнезията на българските граждани след 12 години управление и явно това няма да бъде печелившият ход.
Господин президент, моля ви за коментар. Част от опозицията нарекоха предложеното правителство тристранна коалиция между вас, Бойко Борисов и Делян Пеевски. Коментарът ви?
Не се меся в състава на чужди правителства, нито дължа някакви обяснения по тях. Ако това е логиката, не е лошо човек първо да се замисли за думите, които произнася. По тази логика, от редовното правителство на господин Петков има министър, който е министър в правителството на Габровски. Това означава ли, че това е правителство, как го казахте, Борисов, Петков, Пеевски и така нататък?
Кога ще връчите следващия мандат?
И мотивите за ветото?
Преди да стигнем до ветото, не приемам това, което се насажда непрекъснато от политици към българските граждани. Че виждате ли, в момента има еднолично президентско управление, еднолична власт. Тези политици, особено народни представители, които са се клели в Конституцията, нека се ръководят от нея и не я нарушават. Няма еднолична президентска власт, има неспособност на политическите партии да сформират правителство. Това са две коренно различни неща. И Конституцията много ясно казва, че когато партиите не могат да сформират правителство, президентът е длъжен с указ да назначи служебно правителство. Това е конституционно определен инструмент. И всеки, който говори противното, застава срещу Конституцията, застава срещу нея и руши доверието на гражданите в Конституцията и в собствената си политическа партия. Що се отнася до ветото, знаете, че машинното гласуване преодоля един от големите недостатъци на нашия изборен процес. Недействителните бюлетини. Спомогна значително да се намали и контролираният вод. Затова не мога да приема, че с този закон на практика се променя характеристиката на машинното гласуване. То вече не е